You know, it's funny, if you add an S to it, Oddballs turns into a completely different show.
Yeah, we talked about this. If we had a show about grass, it would be Sodball.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Tony Parker, Gregg Popovich Day. Today's the day we're going to profile the two cornerstones of the Spurs dynasty that helped them win a zillion titles. Also, we're going to talk to Dakhil. He's our friend. We love him. We know him. And, of course, he worked for the Spurs for a couple of seasons there, so he knows Tony and Pop really well. We'll talk about them right now with this little clip. As two cornerstones of the Spurs dynasty of the 21st century, it is only fitting that Gregg Popovich and Tony Parker enter the Hall of Fame together. Popovich was the architect of San Antonio's dominant run of sustained success in the 21st century, starting with the drafting of Hall of Famer Tim Duncan in 1997. It would only take 2.5 seasons into his NBA coaching career for Pop to win his first title behind the Twin Towers of Duncan and Hall of Famer David Robinson. And under Pop's charge, the Spurs would go on to evolve with the additions of Hall of Famers Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, winning 3 more titles in 2003, 2005, and 2007. In 2011, the Spurs consummated a draft day deal to acquire Kawhi Leonard, and within 2 years, Pop was back in the finals, losing to Miami in 2013 before finally climbing back to the top of the mountain in 2014, winning his 5th NBA title. A winner of the NBA Coach of the Year award 3 times in his career, Pop was named one of the 15 greatest coaches in NBA history during the 75th anniversary celebrations. He solidified his status as an all-time great when he became the winningest coach in NBA history in March of 2022, and sits atop the leaderboard with 1,366 wins and counting. Tony Parker becomes the first Frenchman to be enshrined in the Naismith Hall of Fame. The son of a former professional basketball player, Parker was drafted by the Spurs with the second-to-last pick of the first round of the 2001 NBA Draft. Despite landing in Coach Popovich's doghouse early, it only took 5 games for Parker to find himself in the starting lineup during his rookie season. A 6-time All-Star and 4-time All-NBA selection, Parker helped the Spurs win 3 titles in his first 6 seasons in the league, including a Finals MVP winning performance in 2007. In international play, Parker led France to a gold medal at the 2013 Eurobasket, taking home the tournament MVP award. Tony Parker and Gregg Popovich, welcome to Basketball Immortality. My friend Dakhil, he's a regular contributor to Oddball, and he was a member of the San Antonio Spurs staff between 2009 and 2011, and as he likes to point out, not the championship years, but 2 years nonetheless, alongside Gregg Popovich and Tony Parker and Mo. I guess let's get started here. And one of the things that I've teased you about a lot over the years is the fact that in 2010, when the Spurs and the Suns matched up in the playoffs, so Suns team that I worked for, we swept you guys so hard we made you change the way you play basketball. And teasing aside, though, I want to know from behind the scenes, what was the transition like for Gregg Popovich to go from a style that had won him multiple championships to a style that was basically going to be the future of the NBA?
Well, I think that's it. It was the future of the NBA. Like, Tim was getting a little bit older, and wasn't, still dominant, but wasn't the guy you could count on the way you used to in the early runs of the championships, right? And so I think the way the game had changed, they decided we're going to go into more pick and roll style offenses. We're going to go more with Tony Parker. We're going to go more with Manu Ginobili running, all our pick and roll actions, angle and things like that. And everything that they could possibly get into to try to go in from there and eventually maybe work their way into the post with Tim, who was kind of like old faithful at that point. It should be noted that Tim also played still several more years after that, but they did change this because Pop saw where the league was going. And as much as we kind of look at Pop and think he's a guy that's just going to stay set in his ways, he does change, and he tries to evolve with the game as well and be on top of it as much as he can. And I think that's just a great example of it. You guys killed us. There was no question about it. And then we, immediately went back to the drawing board. It wasn't like, okay, well, next year our stuff's going to work. No, it didn't work this year. We got to change. And that's kind of, the way I think Pop sort of looks at things.
Mo, how overt was Pop about those kinds of changes? How overt was he about being like, we need to completely change the way we're doing this and I'm leading the charge? Or did it take what was the dynamic like in terms of how he approached evolving?
Yeah, I think Pop's very upfront about it. Everybody saw what happened to us. I mean, we didn't even have that great of a year to begin with. We limped into the playoffs as a 6 seed. We knock out Dallas, in a 5-game series, and then we go to Phoenix, I mean, you guys were the 2 seed that year, right?
We were the 2.
You were the 2 because the Dallas we were the 6 seed. So, we go into that. And I think the writing was just on the board, but more importantly, then Pop goes and talks with his guys, not just his assistant coaches. I'm sure there were conversations with Tim. I wasn't privy to any of that, Charlotte, but there's conversations with that. It's sort of, hey, this is what we got to start doing. And Tim, who wants to win, has always been kind of the team player, was in with that. You can't do those types of things and start to kind of drift away from the superstar player that you have without his buy-in first. And I think that's the first thing Pop had to do. And I think from there, then we started to realize, hey, we got the okay, let's go. We got to start changing things.
When you look at Gregg Popovich and his coaching tree, the guys that came out from under him, to quote the great Larry Brown, who said this about himself, he doesn't have a coaching tree, he has a forest. Right, and then I think Gregg Popovich, who is under Larry Brown's tree and in Larry Brown's forest, has a forest of his own. So many guys have come out of there. Head coaches: Jacques Vaughn, Brett Brown, Mike Budenholzer, James Borrego. The list goes. Monty Williams. The list goes on. Steve Kerr, you could say as well. During your time, you saw a couple of those names leave and become head coaches in their own right. What does Pop do to nurture and kind of develop guys into head coaches?
Well, one, I think he empowers them. There's a lot of coaching staffs that every coaching staff's ran differently. Everybody does things differently. I'm sure you have a different experience and than for me, but he fully empowers these guys into getting involved and making sure they're on top of it and well aware of all the things that go into it. And I think the other part of it too, and I mean, it's winning, right? This is the organization that wins. So where do teams, when they need a new coach, they pull from the team that's winning. When I was with the Clippers, we weren't winning. Nobody was pulling any of our assistant coaches. And I think that's kind of one of the things when we talk about coaching trees. Part of it is just a success that they have, is something that other teams want to go pull. And it goes beyond just the coaching staff. I mean, the number of front office guys, like Sam Presti was a Spurs guy, you have a lot of guys that end up getting pulled all over the place. Sean Marks, another front office guy, coming from the San Antonio system. I think it's just, they empower these guys and prepare everybody to get to the next step, and I think that's the important aspect that you're looking for. And Pop just says, like, these are the things you got to learn to do. And that's everything that happens along those trends. And it's, I mean, young coaches. I mean, Will Hardy's a pop guy. Ime Udoka came from Pop. Like, there's a whole lot of different guys that we're seeing, and it's just a continuing trend that's, I mean, lasted this long. I'm kind of shocked.
Mo, you've told us some amazing stories about Pop on and off air. And I think you spoke a little bit about this one of the times you came on. But he's known for way more than his basketball brilliance. Pop is like a legendary figure in the basketball world, and everyone feels some type of way about him. What was knowing him on a personal level like?
Oh, it was awesome because it was something, when you get to San Antonio, like, I didn't know anything about him beyond what we know publicly, right? And my perception of him versus, the reality was so drastically different, and I think that's kind of the common thing with that. And I think, you find like all these little things where he's just so excited to share. I went to his house to drop something off, and he wanted to show me his antique book collection. Charlotte, like, you being a rares book dealer is something that's would sing to you. But this is, Brett Brown and I are in the Olympics in London, and he's taking us out to dinner, and he's like giddy as a kid because he got to go to an antique bookstore and bought a whole bunch of first editions and is listing them off. I don't remember any of them, unfortunately, because I was too busy eating. But there was a whole level of like, that's the stuff he loves. We know about the wine and he loves great dinners and things like that, but it's all those kinds of small stuff with him. And he kind of just showed me too, like, you don't have to be just all basketball to be a great head coach, and I think everybody's different in how they do things, but I think that's the stuff like I take away from him in that sense of like, you can be a well-rounded individual as well as be a great NBA head coach.
What was it about Tony Parker? You ever talk to him about how he transitioned from scared French kid to, basically finals MVP caliber player?
Part of it for Tony is, he came in, literally used the word kid, like he came in as a kid at 19, and this is one of those things where it was still really challenging in that regard. And Pop was extremely hard on him. Like, he had to find, how to handle that stuff and the toughness that comes with it, and sort of hardening with that and dealing with all those instances, like you said, getting benched and things like that as a young guy. I probably never fully had those conversations with him, but knowing him and seeing the way he operates, there was just a level of confidence. So even at the end, even when he was shaking a little bit of like, I can do this. And I think that's part of it is, he was there working constantly with Chip England, working on his shot and things like that. And that's a guy that's going to try to pump you up and fill you with confidence and get you excited. Everybody around him was working with him to help him get to that level. And I think once he kind of matured a little bit more, you really start to see it blossom. And then to the point where, like you said, eventually they start turning the team over to him, and that's something we didn't envision early on in his career. There were times where you weren't sure if, how much longer him and Pop could last as a relationship. And they lasted 15 years. Like, it's pretty impressive in that sense. And I think it's just a level of the maturation process is sort of what helped him come along with all of that stuff. And then, of course, just the success. The team begins to roll and he begins to be a centerpiece of it.
How do you think that people in San Antonio think of Tony Parker?
Oh, they love him. I mean, it's look, he brought them championships, the finals MVP. I mean, it was all of those things. There were always stuff out there. There was always things every now and then. Oh, are the Spurs going to turn Tony Parker into Jason Kidd? During that finals run, even, there was stuff like that. There's always small little snippets around there, and it never affected him. But I think the Spurs family, and I mean the community itself, loves him. He's part of that big three, and I think that's one of those things there. And now that they got another French kid in Victor Wembanyama, I think they're going to see Tony around a little bit more. And I think they're, again, just going to continue to embrace him.
Mo, one of the things I used to do in Phoenix was we'd create these teaching tapes based off of, the best of them, how they did it. So we had a navigating screens teaching tape that was based off of Reggie Miller and Rip Hamilton. We had a guard post-up teaching tape that was based off of Sam Cassell and Gary Payton. And we had a teardrop teaching tape that was based a lot on Tony Parker. This is a guy who isn't that much taller than me and doesn't probably weigh that much more than I do now. But he had a couple of seasons where he led the league in points in the paint, which is usually the domain of bigs. What was it behind the scenes that you saw him work at? Was that something with him and Chip England? Was that Tony? Was that God-given gift? And is it in fact teachable, do you think, to other players?
It's teachable to an extent, but I don't know if you could ever be as accurate as Tony was without it being somewhat of a natural ability as well, right? Like the way just his consistency with it and being able to just dominate. Like you said, as soon as he got in the paint, and if that floater got up, it was in. It didn't matter. If he got the floater off, it went in. And I think it was just the natural ability, the constant repeat. Let's do this rep over and over again. The repetitions nonstop of the skill and to truly master it, I think, are the things that went into it. And I think, Chip working with him on it nonstop. This is part of their program. And, as well as I do, everybody has the 5-minute warm-ups where they do the floaters and the next shot. And the amount of time they would spend on just floaters was really shocking. But now you understand why, because it truly was his bag. You made a teaching tape off of it. Like, that's how good he was out of it.
You mentioned all the, floaters and practicing and everything, what's something that you think might surprise people, behind closed doors that you got to see about Tony besides his work ethic that you think might be interesting?
I mean, really just friendly dude, wants to be around and hey, and talk and hang out and check on everybody in general. And then, that was his kind of spiel. He had the workout time after practice. The rookies generally have to start before practice, have to get there early. The vets get to do it after practice. He would do that. He'd go hang for a minute and then boom, he did his job and he was out. And I think those are the kind of things, but he was always checking on everybody. You good? You good? You good? Like, that's the stuff from Tony I kind of remember.
Mo, when you think about both of those guys, Pop and Tony, the most underrated thing about each of them, not the thing that nobody knows about, but the thing about them you think, man, people don't appreciate how good he was at blank.
With Tony, I don't think people appreciate just how tough he was. And it's easy to not see. I talked about it a little bit, but just the ability to take the wrath of Pop, which can be tough, and any coach for that matter, coaches can be really hard, but to take that stuff and continue to push on and thrive ultimately through it, that there's a level of toughness that comes to it that probably doesn't show that much on the court. With Pop, I think it's just the way he went about treating all the players essentially the same. You don't treat every player the same. There's a hierarchy, right? Tim can get away with a little bit more than, say, Matt Bonner. But Matt Bonner never felt that way. And the thing with Pop, it's after he comes down on a guy in film session or whatnot, it's
type it in,
putting his arms around the guy afterwards when they're walking out of film session, and making sure the guy knows, hey, it wasn't personal. It's the Godfather, it's business, not personal. And Pop kind of reeling them back in. I think Pop's ability to kind of stay attached to his guys is something that a lot of people don't understand how to do even.
His name is Mo Dakhil. He's a frequent contributor here on Oddball. Mo, thanks a lot. And I guess I won't see you in Springfield from the sounds of it. You're just too lazy to make the trip, huh?
Yeah, no, way too far. If it was, I'll be honest with you, even if it was in LA, I probably wouldn't have gone.
Thanks, Mo.
Thank you.
Welcome back. It's time to play another edition of Charlotte's favorite game.
Hype me up. Hype me up.
Work in progress. All right, this is the game where we read a name off the card and then the other person has to hype up the name or the statement being made on the card. Does that make sense?
Or the headline or the team, whatever. You get it.
I just learned about this game earlier, so. I'll start with you.
Yes?
I don't know why I had an accent there.
I'll start with you.
It's because we've been doing all this Righteous Gemstones talk. Donovan Mitchell. Mm-hmm. You have to hype up Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan. You are very, very strong. I'm impressed by your conditioning. You can rely on that a lot with the Cavs. Also, think about it. You need to be the next great thing that has happened to Cleveland. Because after LeBron, they could use it. Nothing good.
I mean, I've been there multiple times. It's terrible there.
Yeah, there's a weird underground mall with a Starbucks, but you should go there and love it because that is the city that will love you forever if you can. Eastern Conference Finals. That would be great.
Seems like an easy bar. Good.
All right.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. I
don't know. It's hard to. Cleveland.
I'm just saying, like, your hype up speech would have been a lot better a year ago, the way you were talking. I mean, he's been in Cleveland for a year, so
I know.
Tell him he's going to like it.
I didn't. Well.
That's all right.
All right.
Listen, we'll get better. We get better as time goes on.
Okay, are you ready?
Right. What's the name? What's the name you got for me?
Chicago Bulls.
Oh, the Chicago Bulls, the team, right?
Yes.
Got it. This one's easy. Okay. Hey, Chicago. Lonzo Ball not doing so well. I know. It hurts me too. But guess what? You got that injury exception for him, the disabled exception. So at least there's some money that you can spend to make the 14th worst team in the conference become like the 12th worst team in the conference. You went out and you signed Javon Carter and Torrey Craig. Both of those guys are really, really good at helping teams that have a lot of talent that are close to competing in the championship become contenders. I don't know how well they'll do helping a team that's going to be out of the play-in picture, but anything's possible. Chicago, our pizzas aren't that bad. Charlotte, are you ready for the next headline?
I sure am.
Shaq says he has no problem being left off of Dr. J's top 10 all-time list. If you remember, Dr. J came out with the top 10 list of all players all time, and none of them were active players, and everyone was in an uproar. So Shaq says he has no problem being left off that list. Charlotte, you got to hype up Shaq.
Yeah, Shaq, I think you're right. Why would you want to be on that list when, LeBron wasn't on that list, Steph wasn't on that list? So you could argue that that list was sort of not a full, complete list. And being on it, in fact, might have meant that you didn't deserve to be on it. So I think you just galaxy-brained yourself with my help into being one of the best players of all time, which you already were.
There's some galaxy-braining happening, all right.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Boston Celtics giving away the pick that became Desmond Bane in order to re-sign Al Horford.
Bear with me here. Okay, first of all, hello, Boston. Proof is in the pudding. Al Horford's been to the finals. Desmond Bane been to the finals? No. Al Horford's been to the conference finals. Has Desmond Bane been to the conference finals? No. More to the point, hey, Desmond Bane, how much are you going to get paid once your rookie scale is up? What's that? Max to be nowhere near an all-star caliber player? Would you rather be paying all that money to Desmond Bane, Boston? Or would you rather pay the dependable Al Horford, who has been an all-star multiple times? Check the resume, check the results, check everything. You check it out. You did all right, Boston. Don't worry about it.
Wow, can we clip that soundbite? I might never hear that again.
I may not believe that again. Last one for you, Charlotte. Jimmy Butler just found out that Damian Lillard is coming to the Heat. I must stress to the entire nation, this hasn't happened yet. This is merely a hypothetical, and now Charlotte's got to hype him up.
Yeah, Jimmy, amazing. You can maybe make it to the finals and actually win instead of just making it to the finals. I think you and Dame will have a lovely time together. I think that, are you going to miss Tyler that much? Hypothetically, in this hypothetical situation, I'm assuming he is no longer on the Heat. So this is only good for you, Jimmy, even if you're going to feel a little bit like second banana. I don't actually think you will care that much if you've got a ring to show for it.
If you're keeping track at home, Charlotte neither knows the meaning of hypothetical or hype, apparently. Maybe it's just H words. Charlotte, what's the last card?
This is hard.
Hit me.
Jordan Clarkson stays in Utah for the remainder of his career. This is also a hypothetical.
Oh, this is, I got this one. Hey, JC, it's your boy. Look, Salt Lake City, Utah, beautiful, great place to raise a family, nice and clean. The downtown is in a grid. Every street is 200th Street for some reason. It's 200, corner of 200 and 200. I don't know how to get around there, but it doesn't matter. That means if anyone who's not from Utah is trying to get you, all you got to do is take them downtown and run around in circles and they're going to get lost. It's real easy. Don't stay at that Sheraton downtown, by the way. It was built in the 70s and hasn't been updated at all. I can attest to it. I think there was black mold in my room. I was slowly dying during All-Star break. But all of this is to say, Jordan, Utah loves you, dude. Everywhere I went in Salt Lake City, people were wearing your jerseys, the little kids wearing the tattoo sleeves and the fake hair wigs and all that stuff, man. There is nothing better than being loved by your market because you know what? You'll never have to buy a drink in that town again. Then again, you'll never be able to buy a drink in that town because they have all these weird liquor laws. What's wrong with you, Salt Lake City? How dare you want to host an all-star weekend? You can't even get a double? I can't even order a double? I got to do some weird loophole thing that Mike Ryan of the Levitar Show taught me where you got to get a beer and a shot and somehow that counts as one drink. Did you know this about Salt Lake City, Charlotte?
Yes, because I've heard this from you before. How did you guys let him do this one again?
I'm just saying, Jordan, look, there's a lot worse things that could happen. Like you could be me having to stay my whole rest of my life in Utah. That would be awful. But for you, baby, A+.
You got it made.
That's how you hype someone up.
All right. Well, thanks for playing.
Yeah, why do you think they didn't play? First of all, why are you thanking them? Second of all, they didn't even play the game. We played.
You've been watching Hype Me Up.
Yeah.
That's all the oddball we have for you today.